So what we have for you today here is another build yet again, but this time we're gonna take it a bit more casual because we have 3 items from Deepcool, 4 actually. So we got a case. This is the, I don't know what's the case name. So the case is the CK560. Power supply, this is a 650 watts power supply. PF650, we'll talk more about that later. I kinda think that the design, especially the grill for the fan here, is a bit funky because they're using the Deepcool logo silhouette. And then AO cooler, so this one we're also going to talk about it later as well. And then desk stand for your monitor. So this is the M-Desk F1. I think they have another one called F3, right? I don't remember. There's a USB 2 and USB 3 version. This is the USB 2 version. And the reason why you want this is because you want better ergonomics for your monitor, so you don't have to look down so much, and it's actually also useful for laptops. We'll talk about that later. So what we're gonna do is to take our test bench, one of our test bench, because that system is currently using for our Odyssey G9 gaming. You can watch our top right corner there for the video. So we have to change out some of the hardware, put it inside the case, and then permanently put it inside for that rig to use. While we're doing that, might as well put in all the Deepcool stuff inside and then take a look at what all of this has to offer. So let's get on with the build. So it's a different day. Hopefully I'm wearing a different shirt, but anyway, we have completed our build of the entire PC, and we do have quite a lot of things to share with you. So we'll start off with talking about the power supply first. It's a pretty standard power supply, pretty entry level in terms of what it has to offer, 650 watts, and it is not modular, so you have to deal with all the cables. Luckily, they're all black in color. It's not the mustard and ketchup kind of design, so I appreciate that. Cable wise, I would say it's sufficient. You do have the standard Molex, SATA, PCIe, CPU, EPS cable, enough for this kind of setup. Remember, this is a Core i7, okay, 11700K, and also non-K, and we're using a GTX 1070 FE. So if you want to use some more powerful hardware, then you definitely need a higher wattage for your power supply. Then the AIO cooler. Whoa! AIO cooler is this one, LS520WH. We actually tried the 360mm version previously. This is pretty much the same in terms of its idea, so mounting it is easy. The overall hardware is actually quite good. We did some temperature tests. I did the Cinebench R, I don't know what's the version right now, so I ran it 30 minutes and then I recorded the temperature, as you can see on the screen here. For the 11700 non-K version, it actually runs really well, so no problems there. It's also having this kind of low pitch hum, so that is to be expected when you are pushing this thing to its limits. But the mounting in terms of cabling is where things get a little bit complicated, because the fans, it's kind of weird, because if you want to daisy chain the fan, they got this special proprietary cable. But connecting from the fan to your PC or to the RGB controller, that's a bit headache. And as you can see from this footage here, the cable mess behind this case is mostly due to the RGB and the fan controllers splitting in terms of connection. So if you combine the Deepcool CK560 case in white color with that cooler, it actually looks really good. Everything is white in color, and especially since the fan mounting is also in white color cables, so it kind of matches everything. But yeah, the AIO cooler, the head itself, the CPU block, it's kind of unfortunate because you got some spaghetti running upstairs, so we try to hide it. Unfortunately, we can't. And then there's also two cable holder thing, not cable holder, the tube holder, the AIO tube holder. So you can have one at like 25% of the length and another one at 75% of the length. You can technically run the cable through that holder along the tubes to hide it, but maybe just leave the cable alongside the tube would be nicer, right? Now it's time to talk about the case. Earlier we mentioned about the cable mesh behind. Surprisingly, even with that cable mesh, we can still close the entire side panel without any issues, which is amazing. And the case also have two tracks at the back for cables to go through, but since we ended up redoing all the cable management, we decided not to use the track. Actually, we did use half of the track, just not in between the two rails, but you get the idea. There's also a built-in RGB controller, but since we are not using the included controller from the case, we're using it with the motherboard, so we had to bypass that thing. So if your motherboard doesn't have an RGB controller, that's your option. Oh, GPU holder. So for some reason, this case is very forward thinking. They also have an included GPU holder that is held on by two thumb screws at the back, and then you can adjust to pivot it left or right at the front. So if you got the new RTX 4090 or whatever with those 30cm graphic cards, then you can have that GPU holder. It's built in, by the way, really subtle in terms of its design. Park it in position and then put your GPU on top to rest on it. Brilliant. And in terms of cooling, what I want to highlight is that, oh, by the way, this thing, we should also highlight to you that this is normal because it's designed that way. And then this front filter comes off, and then we can see a total of 320mm fans included. They are RGB and they do have a black frame. At first I thought it wasn't RGB, but turns out it is, so okay. The back here comes with a 140mm fan, non-RGB, but during our mounting with this particular motherboard, we had some issue, which is the fan cable getting caught in between the fan casing and also the motherboard's rear I/O shield. So we just removed the fan, install the motherboard, and then reinstall the fan, circumvent the issue. It's just something that we want to highlight. And then in terms of the fan filters, the top here we have a magnetic one, real standard. And also, just to highlight to you guys, the gap between the top of the motherboard, as in the VRM heatsink, with the AIO cooler, there is some offset, quite a lot of it actually. I'm not sure if I can show you in this footage here, but hopefully you get the idea. And then power supply, we also have this pull-out rail fan filter for the power supply, of course, so pretty standard. If you want to install hard disk, then you do have a hard disk cage there, and you can also position it a bit to the front or a bit to the back, depending on how you like it. And then 2.5-inch SSDs or hard disk, you can also mount it at the motherboard cage at the back. One more thing I need to highlight is the front panel here, actually the top I/O panel. So we have USB Type-C, double USB 3.0 Type A's, and then a combo audio jack. So I would say it's pretty modern in terms of the ports available for you guys to use. And I really like the aesthetic. The Deepcool iconic teal color with this white combination looks really good, especially with the AIO. And back to the AIO, we should also highlight that the CPU block, they have a plate on top that you can rotate depending on what orientation you mount it in. And then you can also change the plate to whatever design you want. So for example, if I want to put a emoji, I can. And lastly is the M-F1. So this is something that you put on top of your table, and then you put the monitor on top of this thing, ideally speaking. But as what we can see here, the assembly process is real simple. You just pop off the two feet, slide in the aluminum feet to both of those pegs on each sides, and then you can stick the silicone feet so that it doesn't scratch your table and hold it in place. And then it also has 4 USB 2.0 Type A ports at the front, alongside with pass-through ports for your microphone and headphone or speaker, whatever. So you can just connect all of them there, and then they also have built-in cable management slots at the back. So yeah, it's pretty good in terms of its utility, in terms of idea. But when you start to use it, it varies depending on your setup. For example, Mr. John, since his monitor is super big, as in the base is wider than this whole M-F1, what he do is he placed the entire monitor leg underneath the tabletop stand, and then he placed all of his other stuff on this thing instead. In a way, it makes sense. It's actually very useful. So laptop. And as you can see here, he placed a lot of stuff on top, which it works. If you want to put a monitor on it, you also can do so, up to 10 kilograms if not mistaken. So 32-inch monitors, depending on what type of monitor you're using, some might suffer with this, some might not. 27-inch gonna work perfectly fine. So I think that's it. That's all we have to share with you in today's video regarding these 4 things from Deepcool: the case, AIO cooler, power supply, and also this tabletop ergonomic thing. It's actually very useful, because even if you just plainly use your laptop, I would suggest you to get this, because your neck, you won't have to look down so much. You know, this point of your neck is gonna hurt a lot. This is gonna help you relieve that pain. So here's the price of everything that we've shown today, and I hope this video is useful to you guys. I'll leave the links on where to buy all this stuff down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video.